Vai'cairn wanted to climb the massive tree to get a look around. Its viewpoint could be invaluable in getting himself back on track. However, the daylight was quickly fading and Vai'cairn was wounded. He decided to rest and try his luck climbing the tree tomorrow. As he gathered brush to make a bed, he heard storm clouds rumbling in the distance. Before long, their sounds began to get louder. Winds swept through the jungle foliage, sweeping branches and leaves, back and forth in the gusts. Vai'cairn is going to make a nature check to try to find or assemble some kind of protective shelter as he sees this storm coming in. His nature check is a 15, so that's a success. Vai'cairn found an area of the embankment not too far away. Large rocks hung overhead and would protect from the wind and rains. He checked the spot for snakes or spiders or other vermin, but it was clear. He added the brush that he had collected and laid himself down. His body stung all over when he moved, but the bleeding had stopped. In a few minutes, the storm came. It was an aggressive one indeed, complete with whipping winds, pouring rain, booming cracks of thunder, and great flashes of lightning. As he drifted to sleep in his mostly dry cubbyhole, he thought of home once again. On a night like this, he was sure the shamans would be performing a storm dance. They would call out to the primal spirits of storm and sea, dancing fervently and holding aloft staffs made from tree branches that had been struck by lightning. When the storm would die, they would send the younger Archai out to find such branches. He had gone on a number of these searches, but he had never found one himself.
Maybe someday I will find a lightning branch. Maybe I will look tomorrow.
These were Vai'cairn's last thoughts as he fell asleep. When Vai'cairn awoke, it was still raining.
Well, at least I have plenty of water,
he said to himself as he sat up. His stomach growled, making him wish that he had something to eat. He collected rain in a broad leaf and drank his fill, and then filled his water skin. He stepped out from the small shelter, rain dropped onto him from the canopy above, and he decided to try and find some food. This is a nature check to forage. Vai'cairn rolls a 24, which is a great success. Within an hour, Vai'cairn had found a couple of handfuls of fat tree grubs, 3 eggs from a bird's nest that had been blown out of a tree, and a good cluster of bananas, easily enough to last him a couple days. He brought it all back to his shelter, and he ate while he was waiting for the rain to cease. It was late into the day when the rains finally died down to a trickle. The jungle was dim from the massive clouds still hanging overhead. He knew the wetness would make his climb slightly more difficult, but after yesterday's attack, he felt that remaining lost in the jungle by himself was the greater of the two dangers.
I've seen many kinds of different vines. If I could find some strong enough to make a rope, that could help my climbing.
Again, Vai'cairn began to search the area around him. He is making yet another nature check. This time he's trying to identify some types of vines and to make a makeshift rope. His nature check, however, is only an 11, so that's a failure. Vai'cairn tried to imitate the rope vines he had seen the crafters in the village make. After a number of frustrated attempts, he gave up. He walked several minutes back to the great tree, and he looked up. A monkey in a nearby tree screeched.
"Give me your hands and your feet, monkey,"
Vai'cairn said as he prepared to jump up and grab one of the lower tree branches.
"I'm going to need them."
What's happening here is Vai'cairn is going to need 4 consecutive athletics checks to climb high enough to get above the canopy. His first athletics check he makes is a 13. And this first one he's making, he's already about 15 feet up. His first one is a 13. That is a failure. His foot begins to slip somewhat, and he has to grab hold quickly and do all he can to keep himself from falling. So he did not make any progress, but he also did not fall. His second athletics check is a 12, and that is a complete failure, and he falls out of the tree. Luckily, he is trained in acrobatics, so he will make an acrobatics check to try to kind of roll with the fall and reduce his damage. He takes 7 minus 6, so 1 point of damage. He begins to try again. His first check is a 23, success. His next check is a 19, success. His next check is a 15. The wetness that is collected on the tree branch caused him to slip a little bit, but he did not fall. His next athletics check is a 22, and his final one is a 29, success. Vai'cairn held tightly to the small branch in front of him and looked around. He had never seen a more magnificent sight. Dark clouds loomed overhead, but to the west he could see their edge, and beyond, a slowly setting sun which painted vivid tones of purple, red, orange, and pink upon the clouds in the sky. All around he saw the rolling green top of the canopy like a sea of leaves. Here and there a massively tall tree, like the one he stood in, emerged from the others. To him it seemed like a giant standing amongst men. Birds flew in small flocks between the canopy and the clouds, masters of this place that most people would never see. The wind whipped cool and strong, making the tree sway. Vai'cairn nervously looked around in all directions, as far as he could see. To the east, he spotted the coastline. He was pretty sure that it would eventually lead back to his village, as long as he followed it southward. As well, about half a mile north from where he was, he saw a steady trail of smoke rising up from the canopy. He had not been in that exact spot, so there was no telling for sure what was creating the smoke. He's going to make a perception check to see if he can notice any details or any other thing that's not quite so obvious. His perception check is a 7, and that is a failure. He doesn't notice anything else of note. This climb had been incredibly helpful, but Vai'cairn still had to get back down. He took one last gaze around and drew in a deep, refreshing breath. All right, here we go. Another series of athletics checks. He needs 4 to get back down. 25 is his first one. That's a success, so the worst is out of the way. His next is a 24. Success. 19, success, and his last athletics check is a 21. He makes it down out of the tree. Vai'cairn landed on the sodden ground and was immensely grateful to be out of the tree. Amazing as it was also incredibly nerve-wracking. He was fairly confident that he knew how to get back home now, but he was curious as to what could be causing that smoke.